you walk through a storm.
Comrades and friends,
Hold your head up high, and
don't be afraid
be afraid
of the dark.
of the dark.
The NDP storm is on us. Another storm's external.
At
the end of the storm,
of a storm,
there'll be a golden sky. That's what we're going for. And Labour will be with you.
And the sweet
And you hear the
silver
sweet silver
song
song of the lark.
of love.
Things will improve.
Walk on
Just keep going.
to the wind.
You walk on to the rain.
Walk on to the rain. Through your dreams.
Keep your dreams, though they may be shattered and thrown all about.
And blow.
And have hope in your heart.
Walk on
With fresh hope in your heart. And
in your
combine it with
heart.
faith and love.
And
You will never walk alone.
alone.
You will never walk alone. Labour will be with you. We must be in solidarity with one another. Comrades in the Caribbean, in the diaspora, comrades and friends all over the world, brothers and sisters, humanity, and of course, very special, here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. North Central Windward, comrades, you hearing me? When you walk
through a storm,
through this NDP storm and the other storms from outside,
up high,
still hold your head up high.
ooh, and
Don't be afraid
be afraid
of the darkness of this
the
storm.
dark.
It will come to an end.
At the end
And the end of the storm,
of a storm,
there's a golden sky.
there's a golden sky, and the
The sweet silver song of the lark.
of love.
Oh yes, better times.
Oh,
Keep it real.
come
Keep going.
to the wind.
Walk on through the rain.
Walk on to the rain. Through your dreams.
Keep your dreams, though they may be shattered and blown and strewn all about.
And blind. Yeah. Walk on.
Keep going, walk on. In solidarity and love.
You'll hope
And with fresh hope in your
in
heart.
your heart.
Knowing that you'll
And
never walk alone. Because for one another, Labour will be there with you, I will be there with you.
You'll never walk alone.
Oh yes, you'll never walk alone.
Walk on,
With hope in your heart, fresh hope,
eternal hurt,
and faith and love,
and you'll
in solidarity, never walk alone. And the Comrade will be there with you, and the Labour will be there. The Labour family is there. And join the Labour family more and more. Good morning, comrades. Well, we are starting late this morning. As you know that I went to St. Lucia, and I'll talk about that shortly. I went to do some political work, regional work with Reflects to the Nation. And I left this morning in St. Lucia 10 past 10, quarter past 10. And you know, you'll take just over half an hour thereabouts to reach with the aircraft, the Twin Otter, 19-seaters. I had to clear customs, immigration and customs, and and get here. So here I am now, and I want to thank Bling and his team for keeping things going. I understand that we were the listeners were informed that I'd be late this morning. I know Sarai would have very much loved for me to come straight from the airport to see her, because my granddaughter, she misses me very much, and she's been calling for Ralph. That's what she calls me. She calls her grandmother Nana, but she calls me Ralph. But she'll see me shortly. I have to pass and get some fruits for her, because she loves fruits, and spend some time with her this afternoon into the evening, because she misses her grandfather. But I have multiple responsibilities and roles, and I have to fit them all in together. And I thank God for giving me good health, strong mind, and the body is in pretty good shape. I want to begin by congratulating all those persons who won this or that placement in this or that competition over the carnival period. I want to congratulate all those persons who participate in Mass and Pan, and those who in calypso and soca of various types, all those who enjoyed all the private parties and fetes and all inclusives and everything. But we have to get back to work after this release of energy and this celebration of our national cultural festival. I want to congratulate the CDC, the chairman, Ricardo Adams, the CEO of the Carnival Development Committee, the indefatigable Rodney Small, who has been doing a fantastic job. Any limitations this year, and I understand there have been many limitations. You can't put it at the door of the chairman or the CEO or persons on the Carnival Development Corporation. You can't do that. You have to put it at the door of the government, which provided an insufficiency of funds. I don't know yet how much the Lotto has put in, or the central government, but what I do know is that there have been a complaint about lack of funds, late mobilization of funds. Sometime when they got the money, too little, too late to do certain things. And I hope an analysis of what occurred in that regard would take place, and that will be a public discussion so that we can improve upon what has happened. But we congratulate all of those who showed their creativity and made their sacrifices and their talent, their ingenuity, their creativity to get things going. This morning I inquired about the cleaning up of the tongue, and I understand that the tongue, by and large, was cleaned up. And again, I have to thank the sanitation workers. They do this job every single year, and I have to thank them and congratulate them. And some of the things I'm hearing, how they want to treat some sanitation workers, they better back off. I want to remind everybody that it's the sanitation workers in June 19 65, which broke the monopoly of Ebenezer Theodore Joshua's union, the Federated Industrial Agricultural Workers Union, which had controlled all these entities when Joshua was in office, Joshua's PPP. And Duff Walker James, who was at the time leader of the Commercial, Technical and Allied Workers Union, in conjunction with a sanitation worker driver who became president subsequently of the CTAW, and involving also Bones Bonady, who I think at the time was working at Banana Association, if I remember correctly. Anyway, and they defeated Joshua's Union, CTAW. Cyril Roberts is the name of the driver of the sanitation truck. So they mustn't mess with sanitation workers, you know. They must not mess with sanitation workers. They have a particular history. They have a particular nobility. And the way in which some people have been dismissed and how they want to treat some other people, and they're saying they want to privatize this and that service. They want to mash up the solidarity of the sanitation workers. I'm talking about the NDP government. I just remind them a bit of history, you know. I didn't have to look it up. I know it is in my being, like the Our Father prayer. And I've written about it in my book entitled The Political Economy of the Labour Movement in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which was published in 2019. So if they want to understand about how the working people evolve in this country and the trade union movement and different sectors, they should read that book. So I congratulate the sanitation workers and all those who are involved, including those who are involved in supervision and management. Because I'm not laying for any deficiency. I'm not laying at the feet of these hardworking people. I'm laying it at the feet of the government and the leadership of the government, of the NDP government. Now, Bling, what is the biggest piece of news which has come about over this period, over the CARICOM, the time of the CARICOM, made public over the CARICOM heads of government? It didn't have to do with anything happened in the heads of government, in my view. It has to do, and I'll talk about some of the things there. I was in St. Lucia at the time of the heads of government meeting. In fact, I participated in a couple activities at the very site where the heads of government meeting was taking place, and I met a number of my colleagues. But I went there to do some work with the reparations movement, with other personalities engaged in this gigantic forward thrust for reparations for native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies, and some other work, including an interview with the Guardian newspaper of the United Kingdom. The Caribbean correspondent is a Vincentian, Miss Natricia Duncan. She's based in Jamaica. She's from Mespo, and we had several snippets of conversations, and then we did an interview. She did an interview with Professor Don Marshall of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies based in Barbados, and myself as senior advisor and elder to the repair campaign, about a number of matters, actions going forward with the reparations campaign, the reparations movement, the repair campaign. Professor Marshall Marshall was involved in working with the repair campaign in preparing socioeconomic plans for reparatory justice, one of which was submitted to the government of St. Lucia, the one in St. Lucia. The one in St. Vincent, we still have work to do. This is a draft copy, socioeconomic reparatory justice plan, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But I'm not going to go through that today in detail. I've spoken a lot about reparations over the last few months, and recently when I came back from the United Kingdom and Ghana, when we dealt with the next steps of the reparations movement globally, save and except to say that we are at a new phase, higher phase in the struggle for reparatory justice, and we have to ensure that we strengthen the reparations, the National Reparations Commissions or committees, and the CARICOM Reparations Commission at the center to put in a good secretariat, because you can't carry the struggle at a higher level with any ramshackle administrative or institutional apparatus. What we have had has served us good thus far, despite limitations, but we need to do even more now because we're at a new phase. That's how the struggle goes. Anybody who wants any education as how you do these things, read the last chapters of most of Paul's letters in the New Testament. Paul, servant of the Lord, called to be an apostle, as to how he had to set about to organize, to evangelize, and to get action done. You can learn about things from every particular source, you know. But I pose the question to you, Bling.
Yes.
What is the most important issue which has emerged? Addition to all the others which exist with the fallout from the war in against Iran. The story is reported in the St. Vincent Times. It's reported elsewhere. The headline: the European Union tells 4 OECS nations to terminate the CBI program by June 2028. It's not 4, it's 5. It's Gaston Brong, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, my dear brother, made it public. But letters went to all 5 who run Citizenship by Investment Program. Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia. Those are the 5. Now, you know that I've spoken in detail about this over and over. And over a year ago, the European Union had issued a directive. And this is after they themselves had closed down, either directly through their executive action or through the European Court of Justice, the one in Bulgaria, the one in Malta, and the one in Cyprus. So all these countries are members of the European Union. And they had made it plain, the 27 countries of the European Union. Britain had made it similarly plain. Canada had done so. And the United States of America also did so. From the White House level, Stephen Miller particularly had been emphasizing this from the White House. But President Trump himself too spoke about it and issued proclamations. Now, they were making the point that it is no longer a matter of reforming your supervision or management of this citizenship by investment program, which is really the selling of passports and selling of citizenship. They said this is not a matter of that anymore. Management, reforming the management or the supervision, no. Is that the very existence of these programs constitute a security risk. The Europeans say it constitute a security risk to them. The British said so, the Canadians said so, the Americans said so. And I have been urging for quite some time now for the 5 governments to recognize that the end is drawing nigh. And having recognized this is to use whatever time you may have in a transition to put together a team to see what would be required, what resources would be required to cushion the loss of CBI money. And that you had to put together a consortium. The European Union, naturally, Britain, Canada, the United States, countries in the Middle East which have been involved in selling passports, selling all the region's passports, like in United Arab Emirates, and institutions like the World Bank, the Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean Development Bank, and the Caribbean Development Bank and our own Eastern Caribbean Central Bank with the respective governments have to put together a program for at least 10 years for adjustments to be made. We have to have a quantification of what is required for the adjustment, because this would affect the external account and thus has potential to affect the exchange, the real effective exchange rate of the Eastern Caribbean dollar, and could send potentially the subregion's economy into a tailspin. Because even if St. Vincent is not involved with these 5, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because the ULP government had never entertained selling passports and citizenship on grounds of principle and of practicality. And I said this thing is not sustainable. I've been hammering that all the time. My colleagues, good friends of mine, disagreed with me, but I spoke to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines repeatedly on this. And I had urged, when I was in government, and since I've been in the opposition again, I've urged that this consortium be put together and to approach them with a program for adjustments, to get monies, grant monies, to get soft loan monies from the different institutions and governments I'm talking about. The governments could then go and do individual, their bilaterals. Those who have relations with Taiwan can do with Taiwan. Those with the People's Republic of China can do that. But I was talking about dealing with the European Union, obviously, is engaged and affected with this, so to Britain, and to some extent Canada and the United States. But certainly also the World Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank and the Bank Latin America and the Caribbean, which all the members of the OECS are now members. When you go to the CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, you'd be able to access resources from the Inter-American Development Bank. But we are not, the the OECS countries are not members of the Inter-American Development Bank, but they historically have received resources on lending through the Caribbean Development Bank. So, I said we have been here before, but with a difference. We sold bananas at subsidized rates. The British government, the British housewife subsidized us for quite some while. And we were doing the British a favor too, because when we started to sell them bananas, they didn't have the extent of US dollars to buy bananas, like how European countries were buying bananas in US dollars from Central America and Latin America. British, they were printing their own pounds, and we were buying. It began during the time when we had a colonial relationship, and the pricing was in British pounds, in pound sterling. So the British also benefited during that time. Anyway, as the world changed and trading arrangements altered and the rules changed, the preferential market came to an end after Britain entered the single market and economy on January the 1st, 1993. And the banana regime, the protective regime, diminished first, bit by bit, until it was completely terminated. And while it was having a diminution, and new rules were coming in, and even when it reached more or less its terminal stages, the European Union provided some support, but that support was very minimal. For instance, the last phase of that support for St. Vincent and Grenadines was called the Banana Accompanying Measures, which was just 34 million EC dollars, just about 11 million US dollars. And it was over a period of about 5 years that program was delivered. It had very little national impact. Oh, it helped a little bit here and there in this or that farming community. But the macroeconomy was not propelled forward by any of these measures which the European Union had assisted us with. At the time of the diminution of the banana regime, protective regime, up to the point of its termination. Now, a similar, though not identical, position arises. What arises is the need for an adjustment. Every single one of these 5 governments would have to make adjustments. Every single one of them. And they need support to make that adjustment. But they have to quantify the extent of that adjustment, and it has to be over a period of time. I don't see how it could be less than 10 years. With annual sums in grants and soft loans from the different elements, different agencies and governments in this particular consortium. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of problems in this sub-region. I know many of you listening to me have a hangover. Some maybe having a little bit too much to drink last night. You may be tired because you went to bed late, or just tired because you were so active over the carnival season and you're winding down. But I have to have your brain switch on to tell you about some perilous times which are ahead. I'm not just only telling you about the perilous times, I'm telling you about a possible framework for a solution. Of course, the Europeans are going to argue that they didn't have any benefit from this citizenship by investment program, so it's not identical with bananas. And that, in a narrow sense, is true. But what the Europeans are telling you, that continue to do this, it's affecting our security, and we're locking it down. Well, we live in one world, and there are non-traditional drivers of security and insecurity. The security stroke insecurity don't arise with the presence or absence of weapons of mass destruction or near mass destruction. It also done through drug trafficking, trafficking in persons, political instability, migration, some of it forced or illegal, and all these things. The European Union know that they brought the hammer down. Between now and 2028, it has to come to an end in June 2028. We have to go to them, but we can't go to them alone. Fortunately, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is having its a meeting, a scheduled meeting in Dominica starting tomorrow. I think it's going to run for 2 days. And that's a time for this to take a central place for discussion. We are already very late in quantifying the extent of that adjustment, but we need the technical work to be done with the work of the CDB, our own Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and our respective national governments, whatever other technical assistance we can get elsewhere, but swiftly. And we have to put this program through. This can't be a program which is related to projects. It has to be policy based if you're having any soft loans, and it has to be the grants you get can't be project related grants. They have to be program or policy related grants. And the more money you could get in grants, the better. But we are in a perilous moment because of this. And there are going to be strictures between now and the June 2028. You're talking essentially of 2 years. This time would go very quickly. And you will begin to see a fall off in collections from the CBI program. You have been seeing fall off already with all the threats coming from Europe, Britain, the United States, Canada, and from their actions. Like, for instance, you take the case of Dominica. The Dominica is no longer given visa-free access to the United Kingdom for about a year now. We see the problem with Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda in relation to a proclamation issued by President Trump. Even though there was a decision which softened it, it still creates the problem. And the British and Canadian immigration authorities are tightening up in the extent of granting visas from these countries because of the fact that because of this citizenship by investment program. Don't fool your fat about that. They've made the determination that the very existence of these programs is a security risk. And I repeat, they had said that there's no management, no supervision going to change that. I spoke about this repeatedly in the last election, you know. Some people listened to me, but a lot of people didn't listen to me. Now, in the case of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the government said that the NDP government said that they're going to roll out the program. I warned them about it. The dangers, the risks in the current climate from a practical standpoint, apart from it being wrong in principle. And I've stated those principles repeatedly already, and I don't want to go over that now. I just want to face the practical danger which is immediate. Because, Bling, when people buy your passport, they buy your passport because they want to go into the 27 countries of the European Union. Yep. They want to go into Britain. Visa free. They know that when they go into Canada and America, they have to get visas. But Before they used to get it reasonably okay, but they've tightened up considerably because of this particular issue where they view it now as a security question. Now, it's going to be interested in the light of this decision whether the NDP government here is going to still persist headlong. Because remember this, we have built, the ULP government built our passport as being, you can go on the internet and find it, we are one of the 3 top passports in the region and indeed in the world. Barbados, Bahamas, let me do it alphabetically. Bahamas, Barbados, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We spent a lot of resources. We did a lot of diplomatic work. There's 150-something countries you can enter with our passport, visa-free. 193 countries in the world. There are some others which we were not, whether we get visa-free for them is neither here nor there. But I was trying before. Remember, I had written Marco Rubio, written the American government in April last year, and there were preliminary discussions with the U.S. authorities. We were supposed to have a meeting with Homeland Security. It was scheduled for September last year. It didn't come off, and then the election came, and that fell. Because I wanted to have visa-free status going to the United States of America. I'd written them about that. And I'd given them all the reasons why. And we have been making the representation of Canada. So rather than doing things to close off opportunities for people to travel, I was seeking to open more and more and to have the passport as an excellent passport. No. Both in terms of its technical excellence, but also the institutional arrangements made to facilitate the easier movement of Vincentians overseas. Because, Bling, I've always said, the 2 most important books in a household in St. Vincent are the Bible and the passport. The Bible comes in duty-free. You have an abundance of Bibles. We had to have our passport as the outward sign of the inward grace of citizenship. Yep. And we had to make this the best that we can possibly do it, and we mustn't do anything to diminish its quality or its acceptability anywhere by selling it. No, the chickens are coming home to roost. I know persons say, well, Ralph, we lost out on some monies. Lost out on some monies. The point is this, the amount of private sector investment that we have received, the amount of support we have gotten from international financial agencies and governments, and the path on which we had put St. Vincent and the Grenadines for development towards a first world status in every material particular, those things could not have been done if we had run the risk of having a citizenship by investment program. I made the judgment, and I think the events are bearing me out that it's not sustainable. I really, I feel it for the 5 governments. And because every time our governments try to have space to do something, others come and lock them down. It happened with, they lock us down with bananas, they lock us down with the offshore finance sector. It's like going up a down escalator. But we are where we are, and that is why I had been suggesting that we have to prepare for this eventuality and to have a package of adjustment prepared. Multi-institutional, national consortium of relevant financial, international and regional financial institutions and governments. But you have to have this package going as policy-based, for the case of soft loans, but very long term, like 30, 40, 50 years for loans, World Bank type loans now, 0.75% for 45 years. We have to make sure that countries like Antigua and Barbuda and St. Kitts be made eligible for essentially either terms. Then we have to make sure that we get more resources in grants, and they can't be project-based, which would take a long time. They have to be more policy-based, programmatic-based, to be sure that the agencies and governments would require some prior actions. But we can do the prior actions fairly quickly because there are usually some policies to be taken and some institutional arrangements to put in place. But we are in a period where we have to move swiftly. There's no other answer than the one I'm providing here, in the extant circumstances. So I come this morning not only to state the problem which exists, is a perilous situation, and then at the same time to propose a solution, but it's a solution I had been proposing for years. This is why it rolls off from my tongue very easily. I know that some of these ideas would be shared by other of my former colleague heads of government, because they're good and intelligent people, and they're interested in their country's welfare. But this to me is an urgency, because it could affect, this can destabilize the entire sub-regional economy, and to put threats onto the regional economy as a whole. And I also made the proposal that this matter, when we're doing the mobilization, when we're putting the things together, I think an urgent meeting, the CARICOM is just finished, an urgent meeting should be held with the OECS and Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, with the Caribbean Development Bank in tow, and if not yet the full leadership of CARICOM, at least the Bureau. Fortunately, an OECS Prime Minister is chairing it. And an immediate past one is an OECS leader. But we have to incorporate in this, in the discussion early, the governments of Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana, and Jamaica, in addition to what we are doing. Because it's critical that we get the mass of the governments to support us in the OECS. You notice, Bling, I never supported CBI, but we have the problem now, and I'm proposing solutions and processes as to how we go forward to deal with the adjustment over a 10-year period. From which St. Vincent and the Grenadines will benefit indirectly. We haven't gone on any such program, but because the currency union would be affected, we would also be affected. So there would have to be support systems there for us to even do, and we have to make that case. And the truth of the matter is this: if the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines want me to help in making that case, I will help, If even if resources come to them and them spending it, they spending it, not me. But it's going to be reckless for them now to go and reckless, ill-advised for them to go and proceed with their selling a passport or selling a citizenship in the light of this, what we have just had here. If they do that, it's like they're taking their two fingers and poke it in the eyes of the Europeans, metaphorically, and saying, listen, to hell with you, do what you want to do. Well, that is not going to bring any benefits to us, just calamity. Now I've taken Bling, I believe, a good 20-25 minutes thus far on this subject. And to me, that is the most critical issue which has emerged recently. I want to deal with another. Now, Bling, that's happening at the time when there are two big questions externally upon us. One already, with the price of the huge increase in price of gasoline, diesel, cooking gas, fertilizer, other products too, but I'm dealing with those which are immediately germane to us. Yep. We see the price of fuel increase in 1 month in St. Vincent by, I want to remind everybody, it has increased by, the gasoline increase by nearly 40%, diesel by 40%, and low sulfur diesel by 35%. Those are huge numbers. $5.09 increase for gasoline, 4.97 for diesel, and $4.44 for low sulfur diesel. Those are big numbers. Yeah. In two increases. And you're going to have another increase in July, and you'll have another increase in August. I'm telling you this. Because you remember, Bling, at the beginning of May, all through the middle of May, I was saying, my back of the envelope calculations is that we owe Solon Rubis, the providers here, something around $12 million. And I said, I think that is a conservative estimate, likely to be 15 million and upwards. Well, I asked Friday the question in Parliament on Thursday last week. How much money? I asked him how much money we owe Solon Rubis. And I have the number here. Nearly $12 million. 11.85 million dollars. And that is to the end of April. Bling. That's to the end of April. And it would have been higher, but for the fact, by the end of December, Rubis had owed the government nearly $7 million. So you notice that when I told you what the number is, and I said in early May, I tell you that the $12 million would be conservative. No. And I warned that if the government doesn't come out clearly and say what is the extent of the subsidy it's going to do to put in place, that if it is just doing this thing off the seat of its pants, we are going to have not only prolonged oil prices because we at the pump because we have to make up for our inactivity earlier, or we're going to have a problem with the supply because you can't owe Rubis alone. I mean, Sol alone is owed $15 million up to the end of April. But when you take out what we currently Rubis owes us, which is just about $3 million, you'll see where the $12 million come down. Yeah? Just now, you're going to add on. You said, Friday said in the month of May, he didn't have the numbers reconciled. But I can't believe that. Because he was answering me on July the 2nd. I could understand the numbers for June, which were not reconciled. But the numbers for May should have been reconciled. I estimate that the numbers for May would probably be no less than $6 million for Sol. And then June again. So by the end of June, we would owe $20-something million. Or we'll have to pay $20-something million. You see the point I'm making? And if you don't make the payments, Sol is going to tell you, well, you ain't making no payments, how you expect me to supply? Eh? It's a real problem. It is true. Remember I had said, Bling, after after America and Israel attacked Iran on the 28th of Friday, the 28th of February, I came here on the Wednesday.
Yep.
And I said, we're going to have, this war is not going to be short. I gave the reasons why in my view that war was not going to be short. And that you're going to have disruption of oil supplies. And the number is going to move fairly quickly from the $60-something, $70 a barrel, US dollars a barrel, to over 100 million. People thought I was being scaremongering, but we had gone this road before. We had seen how it happens. And even why I explained that even why you have those prices, those would be prices, what you may call for futures. You couldn't get the actual commodity purchase at those futures price. The actual price was higher because there was some manipulation of the futures market. And people are talking about that now. But I raised that very early, because we have been this road before. And it's not, I wasn't Prime Minister for 25 days, 25 weeks, or 25 months. It was 25 years. And I used to study this problem before. And I had actual hands-on knowledge and experience. And I said, listen, what you have to do, you have to decide how much you're going to subsidize. And you have to subsidize the minibus men who 90% of their vehicles use diesel. And then you have to decide how much you're going to provide for wider subsidies. But in order to cushion the effect on the system and for the government, you have to do smaller increases. Remember I said that?
Yep.
so that the government wouldn't lose as much money to the oil companies under the bonus-malus system. And I explained that this is important both for stability. If you increase it just slowly, no, by not much, you'll save some money until you gotta go a little higher, so forth. But they did nothing, Bling. But they did nothing for March, they did nothing for April, they didn't do anything on May the 29th. That's the first time they move.
Wow.
By that time, they owing Sol and some malus building up with Rubis, which they will take it from the nearly $7 million which Rubis owed us, owed the government. So I said this thing is building up, and I say, and it's going to provide problems for the government in relation to managing its finances, and because it owes so much money to Sol in this particular case, it may affect supply. And if you wait until the end, like when you wait, like between May and June, he increased gas by 500, and the government increased by $5.09, and diesel by $4.97. Call it $5. Too much in a short period of time. Shocked the system. Got the transport system and the economy topsy-turvy. You see, when I talk these things on a Monday and Wednesday, I don't talk them because I just want to come on and talk. I ask people to listen to the advice of a man who has been through this thing. Friday and Cummins and Leacock and Bramble and them, this is their first rodeo, you know. And they ain't listening. Well, they said they don't want to take no advice from me. They want no help from me. Well, that's fair enough, but I'm telling the public. I'm talking to the public. Sensibly. No. When the peace deal was announced, this fragile peace deal between U.S. and Iran, peace deal hasn't held. There's no open war again. Yeah. It has recommenced. Yeah. The price came down. It came down faster than a number of persons expected because the manipulation of the futures market. That's why that, but that doesn't affect the real price on the ground immediately. And because we didn't start to do things in measured steps first, it's going to take longer to pay off this large sum of money which we owe Rubis, which we owe Sol, and we will Bling by the end of July, maybe by the end of June, when the numbers come in, the $3 million which Rubis has for us would probably be wiped out, and we will owe Rubis also in addition to Sol. It's $20-something million we're going to end up owing by the end of June, when the numbers come in for May and June. No. That's real problem on the fiscal situation.
Yep.
So there's that problem. There's the problem which I mentioned just earlier. The problem of the selling a passport and citizenship, the decision of the European Union, as conveyed in the letter to the 5 countries in the OECS that sell passport and citizenship. And then, Bling, the increase in prices of fuel, fertilizer, and so forth. They have a knock-on effect on price rises. The sharpest, what I heard Friday say, that the point-to-point inflation, he had to get it wrong. Between last year and this year, this time was 1%. They're living in dreamland. I don't know that he misread the stats with the fellas tell him, and then he add something. Well, we have to take account now of additional of the increases from the fuel and so on. He made a statement which was utterly meaningless, because the 1% talk is for the fools, for the birds. In the same way that Leacock intervene and talk something about capital spending is also for the birds. Also for the birds. Men want to distort things. But what you can't distort is the real world, what is taking place. You notice this program, one of the reasons why this program is the most listened to program in the country now, is one of the few places, I ain't saying the only place, that people can get authoritative information and analysis, Not old talk, not sideshow conversation. Real things which affect people. And I'm talking about some big overarching issues today. So if you have a hangover and you're hearing me, you better take your Andrew's liver salts and belch. You better take your if it's some bitters you have to take in water, or if you have a migraine and paracetamol you gotta take. Whatever you're sleeping and you miss it, you gotta go, your neighbor go tell you, or your friend may tell you, well, boy, Ralph was talking about something today, some real serious thing. Go and listen to them. So they could then come and play it back. You know what I mean? Because you have it stored, bling, on Facebook.
Yep.
No. The inadequacy, the insufficiency of the relief provided by this government, with the problem with gasoline, diesel, the cost of living generally, the low level of support is unconscionable. Unconscionable. And we had laid out what should be done in detail more than one time. Things which we had done in the past. Now, let's go to the third thing which is right now upon us. This third thing is the hurricane season. June 1st is the start of the hurricane season. So far, thank Almighty God. But we must remember that is July 1st. On Wednesday gone was the anniversary of burial, Was the anniversary of her burial.
Second.
And we must also remember that the old saying that October is all over is not all over in October, because in 2013 Christmas Eve we had some real damage and loss of life, 9 people. So we are watching now between now and December. Bling. And then we have to be preparing ourselves for early next year, when next year is predicted to be the driest, period because of El Nino. It's you see how you have to look forward, and you have to be always thinking about these large things which affect us while you're dealing with some small things, you know. And problems would always crop up, serious ones, what you have to deal with at the same time. Now, we have national work to do in respect of disaster preparedness, more national work. The family plans for disaster preparedness, you have to make sure that things are in order.
Yep.
Every single one of us. Look, on what night it was, today's Wednesday, was it over the weekend, one of the days, there's a pole in Chester Cottage caught fire, and the whole of the northeast side of the island, from Connery and places in between, all the way up to Fancy, get knocked out. From just after 5 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Vinlec did a reasonable job in planting a new pole, and I have to congratulate the team. They plant a new pole, bling, and they had to take off all the fixtures on the old pole and put them back on the new pole to have the reconnection, and that is, they're working in the night. So, but that ain't hurricane force wind, you know. There's a fire on the pole. By the way, we are having too frequent interruptions on the eastern side of the island, the northeastern side of the island with Vinlec. Let me just say, by the way, I don't know whether the maintenance is not as rigorous as before, or the new materials which they're using for the maintenance, whether the new materials can withstand the sea blast, the salt and all the sea blast which comes from the northeast trade winds, the blast which coming from the sea now, on the Atlantic side of the island. And so that I'm sure that the management of Vinlec is very wise and competent, and I'm sure if I make that observation, I'm sure that they're making that observation too, and probably must be examining what is happening. But I mentioned Bling, that is just, we're in the hurricane season, but that happened. The whole place locked down, you know. From Connery going all the way up. It was major, big time. When Union and Canawan get hit and the electricity poles went down, we saw the time, the length of time that took Bling. Could you imagine if that were to happen? If that were to happen to us on mainland St. Vincent, where you have more people, and you have that on top of the cost of living, the fuel prices, the diesel prices, the LPG price. You have that on top of the austerity program by the government. You have it on the cost of living. You see why the faces of men and women are strained and anxious across this country? And people bawling. Bawling because of the ineptitude of the government. They've gone to declare a policy that they say the debt is unsustainable. And they're going on an austerity program. I outline, first of all, the debt is not unsustainable. The debt is manageable.
Yep.
And we have been managing it, and you could manage it. And there are ways which we talked about managing it, in especially growing the economy. And making sure that loans which you get are highly concessional loans. And the money which you spend on are essential things, what you call good debt. Not bad debt, good debt. Well, Bling, when Friday says that the debt is unsustainable, is there any doubt that when he goes to borrow money elsewhere, people will say, well, if you say the debt is unsustainable, we're coming for more debt for? If you go to a banker and you tell the bank, I'm really in trouble, I'm insolvent, and you tell the bank, nevertheless, lend me some more money, the bank will say, which psychiatrist I must call for you? Now, you saw how a loan which we had arranged for $30 million, concessionary loan, 20 years, inclusive of the 5-year grace. Friday could only get 20 million. Because we had done all the prior actions as I outlined in the parliament. Everything. Was just to sign on the dotted line. The fellas tell him, well, boy, not 30 anymore, 20. He gives some cock and bull story that they say, well, because IDA had done, International Development Association had done 20 under the catastrophic drawdown, deferred drawdown option, we could do that. But World Bank IDA is different than the OPEC Fund for International Development. So what Friday talk about there is pure BS. Pure BS. You want to smoking people. If anybody tell him that, he should have just pushed back. Correct. But it would have been good if we had gotten the 30 million because US has very cheap money. No Bling. We had prepared the feast for this 30 million. Well, they take away some of the food. But all Friday had to go with the knife and fork to go eat food on the plate, though a smaller amount. But that means it's a policy-based loan. That means, Bling, you 10 million US short. That is $27 million. So, instead of getting 54, you would get just over 80 million. You see what I mean, Bling?
Yep.
Now, out of that 54, which he get in, which will leave on a platter for him, he had to go and pay by the end of June, $20-something million to Solon Rubis, You see the money almost done already? Yep. The 50-something done, nearly done already? So if the poor and the working people say, well, boy, some money there, Ralph, the money which Ralph negotiated and which is there and which is on the platter. It's, you see, more than half of it gone already, Yep. In paying for the fuel. Bling. But to show the ineptness further of Friday had told us a month ago that you're going to put a cap on the price of diesel and gas for 3 months. Within 1 month, he broke his word. He said he's going to put a cap on the fuel surcharge. There is no cap on the fuel surcharge at Vinlek. And Vaughan Lewis, the CEO, has made that very plain. There's no cap. So on two fundamental promises there, Friday had to walk them back. Within weeks. It's either he never intended to do them. I don't know going through your head. But one thing for sure, there is no cap. Either on the price of diesel and gas or on the fuel surcharge at Vinlek. Despite what he says. Because he hasn't worked out a plan carefully. And you have to tell the people. So I want to recap this morning. Bling. We have this letter from the European Union about the CBI and the consequences. We have the issue of fuel, fertilizer, because the farmers interested in that, and we have that bling with the massive increase in prices. And Friday had in the sunset gone up only by 1%. Friday's a crazy man. Eh? Where you get that from? And then we are in the hurricane season. That is why I'm asking the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines, and especially a section of the young male population who have a tendency towards violence and an absence of restraint in solving disputes. Listen, don't add to our problems by getting involved in things violent. Do things, just be restrained when there's a controversy, and don't carry out any revenge, violence, or killing. That only make things worse in the society. And for people generally, I'm saying we have to work harder and smarter. That includes management too, and people have to get just economic rewards for their labor. And we ain't see the workers getting an increase in salaries. Which if ULP was in, we'd already had since January the 1st. Yep. The nurses have to get back their $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year, which we used to pay them extra, tax-free. You have to stop the firing and victimization of people. In other words, there are internal things which are being done. And Friday, Leacock, Cummins, Bramble, Shallow, Bruce, and some of the newer ones had to just come off their high horse and arrogance. Because you ever see people become high and mighty and arrogant so in just a few months? And they're hiding from their constituents, Yep. So true. All of these things are crowding at the same time. Social safety nets falling apart. And to show you bling, that the man and woman them in government, how little they have to show for. You get Israel Bruce get up last parliament to make a ministerial statement. I thought Bruce is going to come with some big thing, big program or something funded by some agency. I say, well, boy, they must make a breakthrough with something. He get up a 1.3 million EC dollar grant from the Food and Agricultural Organization involving the identification with drones and some training to look at pests and and deal with them. Presumably also to look and deal with the African snail. Because he had $700,000 in the budget to deal with the African snail as local loans. You ain't hearing nothing about that anymore. Come now with the 1.3 million. Look, every year, the Food and Agricultural Organization give all these countries grants. You just have an existing government, you get the grant. They will tell you, well, you say you have some pests, and they would suggest that, and the thing would happen. The man get up and spend half an hour talking about that. I turned to Carlos. I said, Carlos, you see the man who ain't got nothing. Here what Bruce talking about. On a regular basis, Sabia get $2 million, $2.5 million for these things, carrying out programs quietly, talking about them, and so, but not to make a ministerial statement on them. Then the young lady Lavon King, in the absence of the Minister of Education, said she's going to do an analysis of the CPA results. She didn't give an analysis. She gave partial data, partial information of the performance of students. There was no analysis. I wanted to go down to the Ministry of Finance. I want to suggest a man who we must go and talk to, who knows data and who knows analysis. I'm sure the Director General would lend him to give a half-hour talk on this subject. I talk about Anson Latchman, no?
Yeah.
Who is a man into data analytics. You know what I mean? But to provide some partial data. I'm not asking them to go to Mars, I hear the thing and I sit down. That's what kind of little picnic. What kind of little picnic kind of presentation we get in? I come out. And by the way, she came on and she said, I want to read what she said. She said she wanted to do an analysis of the CPEA students' success in the face of insurmountable challenges. Because I was listening to her carefully. So at the end of it, I asked the speaker if through her she could ask the Minister of State in Education, Senator King, to make the correction, because surely she didn't mean insurmountable challenges. Because if she means, you tell me you have success in the face of insurmountable challenges. Well, if they're insurmountable, there would be you will say that there has been no success because the challenges are insurmountable. But clearly, because they have had success, the challenges are surmountable. Or if she didn't want to change that, she could have qualified insurmountable by saying in the face of seemingly insurmountable. Seemingly would mean, would be an adjectival qualification of insurmountable. But when I raise the issue, the rest of them over there say, no. So even they're in such a state of siege, despite their so-called bravado, that they don't even want to have an English language error corrected. And then I want to tell everybody this. When I take in a lot of time and talk, you all not going to have me wrong all the time, But once I'm wrong, I take my time out to talk with you, to have a conversation with you. Given my training, my experience, my demonstrated wisdom and judgment, I advise you not to support me, Sure. Just listen to me and think about what I'm saying and make proper judgments. You remember? in the budget, 2026 budget, they had in it a provision to borrow $200 million in local loans. That is in the local and regional market. I outlined to them all the reasons why you would not be able to borrow $200 million. And I told them, all of you with little pet project here hoping to be financed by local loans, all they go cannibalize one another because none of it come in. You remember that? I told them that. They look at me and they show, no, it will happen. And
I think you were joking.
okay. No. I also told them, in the local loans of $200 million, the interest rate for that would be higher than projects which they put on ice with soft loans from international agencies like programs under the Saudi fund, which were ready to be rolled out. They just had to make a final démarche to the Saudi fund. No. On April the 21st in Parliament, I asked Friday how much money they collect with the bonds. They said $22 million or thereabouts. I asked him over the next quarter how much money he intend to raise and at what interest rate and what terms. He said he don't know. You have to discuss that with his officials in the Ministry of Finance. Well then, on July the 2nd, I asked him in a question, a question for oral answer, how much money he raised between April and the end of June. He said 30.4 million. 30.4 and 22, that's 52. Mm-hmm. So in the first half year, he raised 52, little bit over 52, or thereabouts. Bling. That's the first half year, you know. Yeah. I asked him in relation to this 30.4 million, what is the interest rate for this money? And over what period of time? He said, well, there are different bonds at different interest rate. Some is 5.75, 6.5, and 7.25. You see, and some bling is over 6 years, some 8 years, 10 years. I then asked him a supplementary. How much of this 30.4 million did he borrow at 7.25%? And how many years for those he borrowed at 7.25? He said he don't know. You'd have to get back to me on that. He could provide the information. No, I wasn't asking Friday a question. How much money borrowed? You know, if a man is in office and you ask him a question, how much money did he borrow for this thing 2 years ago, a year ago? He'd say, well, I have to check it out. I don't remember all of it. Yeah. But bling, if I ask you between April the 15th, bling, and the end of June, that is just the other day. You mean to tell me you don't know? That means you're not a curious Minister of Finance. Exactly. But here, what interest rate they're borrowing at? 7.25. And they're giving them as little as 6 years. No, that is putting additional burden on the debt. Remember talking, there's good debt and there is bad debt. Good terms for a debt and bad terms for a debt. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be borrowing some money in local loans, but you have to constrain the extent of the amount. Correct. Because I point out to them, and it's in the estimates which they themselves bring, the debt of $3.5 billion. $2.5 billion of that is external debt, low interest rate, long periods for repayment. Yeah. That only, the 2.5 billion, take only 16% of the local revenue to service. 16, But yet, the domestic debt of 990 million, less than 1 billion. 2.5 billion takes 16% of the local revenue to service. But 990 million takes nearly 27%, out of the revenue, the local revenue to service. Clearly meaning, you see this local loan, domestic loan, you have to be careful how much of it you borrow. No, I could understand if you have a natural disaster, there is no money, no other money nearby at hand, and you have to do some things, you have to, you know what I mean, bling. But we're mopping up. Yep. We're mopping up. But it's not to spend on natural disaster things, it's really just to treat with some pet things for fellas, and to buy to spend a lot of money on the Prime Minister resident, buy a lot of vehicles for the public servants, and buy vehicles for the Prime Minister, $600,000 worth of vehicle, and all kind of various things, You have to be careful when you go on the local loans. But watch this. Why you raise so little money? And why has he? Because if you raise only 52 in half a year, you have nearly 150 more to raise for the second half year to deal with your budget. Mm-hmm. But I told him from the beginning it's impossible, you can't do it, and gave the reasons. But watch this. 7.25% is a big number in this period of interest rate period. And I have no doubt that much of that 30.4 million which they borrow between middle of April and now, and June, the end of June, is at 7.25% over a 6-year period. Bling, if you go to the market and tell them, Ralph let a debt for me which is unsustainable, and I'm going to go on an austerity program with the IMF, and you come to a bank or insurance company or a private sector person to borrow money in bonds, Bling, the first thing they're going to tell you, well, if you want money from me, I'm reluctant to lend you because of what you say, that your existing debt is unsustainable. But if you want from me, I will give you a short period of time to pay back. And you have to pay me a higher rate of interest. Yep. Which is what is happening now. So Friday has spooked the market. Spooked the market against the people's interests. And he's doing so at a time when we have all these multiple challenges, comrade. I'm dealing with big issues with you today, But all of this has the manifestation on the ground. You see the number of young people now going online, doing GoFund to see if they could
Yeah.
People want to bury the families. Social welfare. They're telling them Santa Claus ain't here anymore, meaning Ralph. We see what they're doing with Lotto in locking off the amount of money that going to go to children, poor people children. Capping the household income where you could get any assistance. Only bling. The only assistance you could get is if your household income is more than $2,000 a month. That's everybody walking in the house, 2,000 bling. 3 people in the house walking, and got 2 children going there to school, secondary and college. Bling. After you pay for your fridge, your stove, your TV, via purchase, and you pay light, water, and internet, because the children going to need the internet. You ain't got nothing for food, you ain't got nothing to send the children them to school.
Nope.
And you tell me it's only one would get money, no more than one in the family can get any help. A lot of children, bling, in secondary school will drop out. And when they drop out, you have to pay more for it at Belial prison.
Crime will increase.
Eh? You hear what I'm telling you? Bling. You also going to have fewer people going to community college, which means fewer people are going to go to university. They want to choke it off, they can't come. The education revolution is so popular. They can't say they're going to kill it off one time. But they intend to slaughter the education revolution. Death by 1,000 cuts. You hear me? Death by 1,000 small cuts. That's how they intend to slaughter the education revolution, which has brought so much benefit to the young people of this country, and we're now beginning to see the benefits. Bling. Perhaps I talk enough for people. In there's some CARICOM things I will talk more on Monday. But I think I had to deal with these big things. I talk a little bit too about reparations. Let me just say this, bring additionally. Next week on Saturday I have to go to Trinidad, because on Sunday I have a series of interviews doing in Trinidad. I'll talk about them when I return. I come back on Monday morning, but I should arrive in St. Vincent back around 9:15, 9:30, which means I'll be here in time for 10 o'clock. But that is so if you don't see me on time on Monday,
Know that you're coming.
You know I'm held up.
Yes.
I ain't holding up myself. I'm at the mercy of the airlines or any other intervening factor. As you notice, I'm doing my work nationally. I'm doing my work constituency-wise. I'm doing my work regionally, and I'm doing my work globally. A lot of people send in invitations to me to do speeches regionally and globally. I have to pick and choose because I can't do all what is asked of me.
True.
And as you know, a lot of people visiting me. You came up by me with 6-7 women from Barley.
Yes.
On what day that was? Saturday? Friday?
No, Friday.
Friday. It's just after you all came by about just after 2:00, and you all stayed until
Stayed a
just
while.
5.
Yes.
You all stayed a while with me talking about all kind of things. And then the electricity went. You remember?
Yes.
When you were there that the electricity went.
Yes.
Just
Yeah, too.
and three gentlemen from my constituency came to see me. I had to tell them I couldn't take them inside of the study, so we sat on the chairs outside under the trees until the darkness of the night, holding conversation. We're talking about all kind of different things. And I did. I was very happy on Saturday to attend Flair. Chevron.
Yeah, we saw you outside.
Chevron had a good show. Our Chevron,
Yes.
not the one from North Windward. You know,
Chevron's true.
our Chevron. I just have to say our Chevron.
Yes.
Our Chevron. Our candidate in the Southern Grenadines, distinguished professional. She put on a fantastic event. And I've seen many pictures, many photographs. There's one lady who wanted to have a photograph with me. She had a particularly creative outfit. But some other people had pulled me and given me a drink, a non-alcoholic drink, that I didn't finally get to. I apologize if she felt that I had, when I said I was coming back, because when I come back at the spot, I didn't see exactly why the spot. But there were dozens of persons who took photographs, and I see the fellas put up one with me, 3 wonderful young ladies on my page. They have me. I have on a shirt, and they had similar color. I didn't color code with them, But it was a nice event, and on Saturday I had a lot of people coming by too, and then the Sunday similarly. I want to thank the Comrade sister who sent food for me on Sunday. There's a lot of love being showed, and there are things which we are all working together on in solidarity to the best of our ability. Thanks. I'll take questions if they have any. If any came in.
A few questions coming in. One gentleman is asking, do you have any idea? You hearing?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
No. You want to turn this for me?
Want me to turn it up somewhere for you?
Yeah, turn it up somewhere for me.
I didn't want to. I think that is. How is that?
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
So, a gentleman is asking, do you have any idea why our salaries are entered as ACH credit B/O Bank of SVG for the last 2 months instead of GOV SVG?
I don't know. I'll have to inquire. I will inquire. I'll inquire.
Another gentleman, he's saying, good morning, PM. Is there the possibility that the Minister of Finance, Dr. Godwin Friday, is maintaining a current cost of fuel to help pay the monies owed to SAL and Rubis, and to help offset the shortfall in local loans to meet the $200 million budget target?
Well, I had said to everybody I said, usually, when fuel prices increase, it takes a little while to kick off here, but it exists a little longer in the normal course of things. But the way the government is handling it, the person is quite right. The brother or sister who sent this thing, it's going to take a longer period to recoup. So you're going to have a longer period by far of elevated fuel prices than you have it, say, in the United States of America. Not only because in the normal course of things, you will have a longer period, but because so much money is owed to the oil companies and at the moment to Sol. But the numbers for Rubis, the malus for Rubis is increasing, that you're going to have a longer period of elevated prices to pay back for those things. So he's quite right. And this is why the minibus men should be insisting on a specific subsidy, not any generalized subsidy, a specific subsidy at a particular quantum, more than the general subsidy which is now being given. Otherwise, you will have to pay. You'll have to charge, more for taking passengers. The government, for instance, from Georgetown, the number will have to increase from $7. And you take up a particular place from the leeward side, 22 miles Chateaubriand, similarly as to Georgetown from the leeward side. $7 or thereabouts. It would go up. I want to say this to the minibus operators too, though. I want to say this to you. The challenges which you are coming under, there are some things which you yourself need to do, including ways and means in which you can save fuel. But I'm talking about the delivery of service. You need to deliver a better service. People are complaining too much about the loud music in the minibuses, behavior sometimes by some drivers and some conductors. Some tendency in some occasions to overcrowd, trying to see if you could get away from the police with that. Too much speeding, dangerous or reckless driving, or if not dangerous or reckless, driving without due care and attention. Because what is beginning to happen, Bling? So I'm dealing with a second point now. Separate from the fact that the minibuses are under pressure because they have to spend, the average minibus has to spend, Bling, if they continue their normal work, between $2,000 and $2,500 more a month than they will normally spend.
Because of the increase?
Because of the increases. No. You know, you have a lot of Noahs from Leeward, from my constituency too, from Mespo. You know that there are people, particular class of passengers, when I say class, type of passengers, not class in terms of social class. Some people who can't take bad behavior from some drivers and some conductors, uncouth behavior, from excessively loud music, and in some cases, overcrowding, even though the overcrowding is contrary to the law. Playing the loud music, too is also contrary to the law. But the fellas ignoring a lot of these things because they're not properly policed. Difficult to police also. That there are persons who are prepared to pay from Georgetown to go to town. Some people. Not to travel every day. They can't do it every day, but if they travel occasionally, if it's once a week, they prefer to take a Noah and pay the Noah $15 to go rather than $7. Some people tell me they prefer even to pay $20 than to pay the $7 in the minibus. The Noah is air conditioned. The people in the Noah, the drivers generally, are very respectful of people. They play music which is not loud. They don't play music which is offensive to people's sensibilities. And on top of it, sometimes they give you a diamond. Mm-hmm. So, challenges coming to the minibus monopoly from Noah's. It hasn't reached yet a critical mass point, an inflection point. But the minibus operators have to watch that. And your answer is to deliver a better service. The drivers and the conductors, there are too many complaints about some of them. Some drivers, of course, the bulk of the drivers are well behaved and bulk of the conductors are very respectful. But we still have too many who don't think they're delivering a service. They think that they're doing people a favor.
Yep.
And for heaven's sake, turn down the music now. It's not a moving disco. And don't play music which has a lot of stuff which offend people sensibilities. Some of it is too vulgar and too coarse. So you notice how the elder is providing the advice and the guidance.
Yep.
So that's how I answer my brother. I answer him and extend the conversation.
Another one here. Good afternoon. I'm reading exactly what the individual wrote. Good afternoon, my Prime Minister. How come I never hear you spoke or highlight about the tunnel that he done in Byra and Park Hill?
I speak about them, and I'm glad you remind me. I did the tunnel in Byra for $2 million. Encase it, concrete. It was falling apart, and the houses on top would have collapsed, and the whole thing would have fallen. And then, to improve the situation, similarly in Park Hill, we shot a tunnel. We spent $1 million on that one. Look, Bling, there are so many things we do. You know, there are people, they're still taking away house from people. Huh? They're playing with fire in this country, no? Yep. Eh? Yep. The NDP playing with fire in this country. I warn them, I advise them. James Baldwin in the 1960s, the great African-American novelist and writer, has a book called The Fire Next Time. And in the very early in the book, Bling, he says, God gave Noah the rainbow sign It's the fire next time.
Yep.
God gave Noah the rainbow sign for the flood. Next time, fire. These guys, with their arrogance, their insensitivity, I'm talking about the NDP leadership, they are playing with fire the way they're going about hurting the poor and the working people and the nation. And I always tell people, as a man who grew up in the farmers' community, it's not long rope does hang cattle, it's short rope. And the people will pull in the rope very swiftly because they're not behaving right. They're behaving out of order.
Comrade, remember the campaign, Likak says, well, he said, we have too many cadets, graduates in the country and they have to do something about it.
Yeah. Is that, my brother, my comrade, is them kind of ignorant thing they talk about in the campaign and some of the rhetoric. Well, I see the speaker allowing Leacock to get up. And Leacock has no respect for her, He gets up on a point of order and he's spending 7 minutes on his feet. He say rise on a point of order and he go on and make as though he's making a speech in the middle of somebody making their presentation. He does not respect the speaker. He doesn't respect anybody anymore. He doesn't respect anybody anymore. Just doing what he wants to do. And Friday is the week to put him under manners. And I'm saying here, the speaker has to watch it. Because she has to take a firmer hand with Leacock. And to some extent, Bramble and what's his name there, Israel Bruce. It is clear to me that they do not respect the speaker.
Comrade, what is your take on constant using loans to pay the recurrent expense?
I'm glad you raised that one. Look, I found out from Friday, I asked the question in April from the $22 million, which was raised from January to that time. He spent 67% of that money, which he raised up to April, on recurrent, and 33% on capital. And he spent, out of the 30.4, 78% on recurrent and 22% on capital. But hear this. In his budget, the numbers were of the 200 million, he was to spend 160 million on capital and 40 on recurrent, which is to say 80 on capital, 80% on capital and 20% on recurrent. Now is the reverse. He's spending nearly 80% of the money which he collected on the local loans on recurrent and 20% or thereabouts, slightly over 20% on capital. So that the brother is right that what he's doing, there's no growth in the economy. There are problems with all their austerity measures. So that the money which is to be used for capital purposes had to be diverted to keep the thing going on. They keep the enterprise just going, tottering along. And it makes things worse because there is also no private sector, no significant new private sector activity taking place to jumpstart the economy. No public sector or no private sector. And when you have a project, for instance, at Overland, the bridge there, which the World Bank had to close down, not a soul come and say one single thing as to why the World Bank closed it. Is it a problem between the contractor and the consultant? Is it a problem where the contractor, the quality of the work of the contractor? Is it that there's a design problem? Is it that the scope of works have gone up? Is it that money is not being paid on time to the contractor? What is the reason? Bling. They're talking about all kind of things. They come to Parliament. They mention one thing about that. The only person who said anything about it is Dinky, the contractor. And Dinky put his part straight. Whether the part that Dinky put is the correct story or not. That is the only story out there. Nobody in authority has said anything. Dinky just basically, from his narrative, which is reported, Dinky basically say, well, listen to me. This thing locked down by the World Bank, it ain't my fault, eh? Well, we don't know whose fault it is. Because nobody say authoritatively. It's a serious thing when the World Bank stop a project, you know. You get bad name for that, you know. And it taints all kind of other things the World Bank doing with it, you know. They said in St. Vincent and Grenadines, they running this thing properly. But they have said nothing. Absolutely nothing.
The Speaker of the House refused, Senator Carlos James, to ask a follow-up question regarding a failure by the government to conduct any recent assessment of inflation's impact on low-income households. Senator James wanted to know what are the government plans in this regards.
I thought the Speaker was not correct in denying Carlos a follow-up question. And I think her comment off the cuff was unnecessary. The Speaker knows that there are two qualities which inhere in her office. The first one is impartiality. The second one is her authority. And both of them are conjoined. Authoritativeness and impartiality. If you're not impartial, your authority is accordingly diminished. And if you are authoritative, you can only be so if you are impartial. Now, notice how I frame it. I am not making any public accusation of any lack of impartiality. I'm just talking about the qualities which inhere in the office of a speaker. But I could say emphatically, from the behavior of Leacock, Bramble, and Bruce, they don't have any respect for her. They don't have the way she will sometimes she'd say, yes, honorable member, and she put her, and they just feel that because she was once the head of the women's arm of the NDP, that she was there, that they could take all kind of liberties, and in the process, what they're doing, they're demeaning themselves and undermining the authority of the speaker. That's my perspective on it.
Do you have any knowledge of Moody downgrading SVG?
I have not seen the report, but I've been advised that Moody has issued or about to issue a report. I was in St. Lucia and I looked for it and I didn't see it. That they downgrading us, which would create an issue for investment purpose. You see, remember I used the expression just now, Friday spooked the market?
Yep.
Eh? Man don't know when to talk and when not to talk, you know, and what for talk and what not for talk. Eh? Same thing with Leacock. You remember last week I come here and advise, or a week before I advised Leacock on this subject. Advise the same thing to Friday. If you go about and badmouth the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, what do you think the fellas, when they sit down with Moody's, going to say? Of course, Moody's would be objective in any event within their own remit, but you encourage them with your comments. This is why I didn't quite understand a comment made by a leading CDB official, but more time for those things.
An individual is saying, PM, we wanted to talk to him about it. He was, well, okay. PM, we wanted to talk to you about it, but you was out of state. So much speed and high music. We are so afraid for our safety.
On the road?
On the road.
Well, let me tell you something. When I went to this event, the night, Bling, I'm telling you this. I went because I knew in going, there not a lot of traffic would be coming towards me when I leave in Gas. And I left not too late, that when I'm going, there'll be not a lot of traffic coming to me. Because what the person is talking about, I'm very mindful in respect of my own safety. And I compliment the police on the work which they do generally. But people who are driving vehicles, as Munzi, the old magistrate, used to tell them, some who are reckless, is that the vehicle in the hands of somebody who is not careful, that vehicle is a weapon more dangerous than a firearm. That is how he used to caution. And all those, amidst all the problems that we have, which are not of our making, the government should avoid making the mistakes that they're making, and we ourselves as a people have to be more disciplined as a whole. Most of our people are disciplined, you know. Most of our people are orderly. But because the country is small, a relatively small number of people can destroy and disturb the peace and order. And this is why we have to try and get the message to everybody. And persons who are hearing me, if they know they're going the wrong way with these things, they say, well, you know, what Comrade Ralph saying is true, you know, we gotta be more careful when we are on the road. And I got complaints from one, and I'm sure that Kelly Glass may well do an apology about it. The second event they had, which was the event on Sunday, down Coconut Grove area. There are people in the you know where the Cuban ambassador house is. Camilo lived there, and there are people who are locked, it was impossible for them to get out. I wanted to see my grandson and granddaughter, that is Camilo's children, on the Sunday. Because I was leaving on Monday, and they're going away to see their grandmother that's Camilo's mother, for a couple of weeks. So I wanted to see my grandchildren then before they were, and Camilo said he was bringing them. He called and tell me that he and other people get locked in. I said, I mean, they get locked in. Apparently, the night before, when they had an event there, or 2 nights before when they had the event, they had enough police who were dealing with it. But apparently, on this particular event, they didn't have the number of police hired. I think they had 1 or 2 auxiliary. But people are very upset about it, and I have to mention it, and I don't know if my friend Kelly Glass, if he knows about it, but it was a real problem. So that when these things go on, we have to think about other people. We have to give consideration to other individuals. It's not just, by all means, people have to go and enjoy themselves. But Bling, you can't do it in a manner where you don't have the arrangements in place to take on the crowd which is coming. When I was coming in one evening, I saw a lot of vehicles parked up at Annesville, and I saw some big buses there too. And I asked one of the officers what is happening, and he tell me, well, they shuttling the things to go to Keith Boy's event because they just don't have enough parking space and so on. And that's a very responsible way of dealing with things. And apparently, I don't know if the time before, that was an arrangement which was done by Kelly and his team. But definitely on Sunday, there are people who are locked out. The people who are locked in, sorry. So could you imagine if the ambulance had to come for somebody? Was a relative, in my case, this one was a relatively minor inconvenience that I didn't see my granddaughter and my grandson, Camilo's children, before they left now. I think they left on Tuesday, and I was going away on Monday morning. And so I know that from my own experience, there are too many of these little things which are happening where we need to make sure that we see improvements all around. But the question, the big question there, Bling, where the person raised about the dangerous or reckless driving by some people on the road. Bling, we have 30-something thousand vehicles. 35, 37. The numbers have increased from 8,000 in 2001 to this number. Bling, if you have 1% who reckless, who drive in, if it's 37,000 vehicles, 1% is 370 people, you know. Yep. in a small country across this 11 miles wide and 18 miles long. Bling. They could seem like plenty, you know, and there are plenty. In fact, if you have half of 1%, is a problem. Particularly on our relatively narrow roads. I mean, we don't have the space. With some places we have highways, but a lot of places it's just 2 vehicles can pass. And we have to be mindful we don't turn our vehicles into dangerous instruments. Any other?
I have one. I have one question, but I won't ask it on air. I need clarification, and then when you come in on Monday,
okay,
I
then.
can ask it.
Fine.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
I wish everybody a wonderful day. I am sure when I return home, Sarai is going to be so joyous to see Papa Ralph. you know the funny thing, Bling. She calls her mother Mama, her father Dada, and she calls her grandmother Nana, and she calls me Ralph. What a thing, eh? It's beautiful though.
Yes,
God bless.
Yes.
Thanks.
Will you walk through a storm? Hold your head up high and don't